Episode 104, Identifying Mental Abuse.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And a wonderful good day to you. All of you, welcome to the 104th episode of the very best podcast in the world, your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. Today, we're going to be touching on a rather sensitive subject. But since we are all globally in a situation where a lot of us are made to stay inside with people, who are parts of the family, but even parts of the family can be assholes. I don't know how hard that is to fathom for some of you who are like me in a very harmonic environment and always have been. But there are those who are not in that type of a beneficial situation. And mental abuse is something that is home in the domestic environment. It's something that is home in the workplace, or that finds a place in the workplace. Hashtag mobbing, that kind of deal, or just, pissing people off, and making their life miserable because you or the other party has to be in charge and has to outline and underline their dominance and their control of the environment. And the other fact, about the domestic environment, the domestic milieu, is about really having an abusive partner that, takes advantage of the situation of your relationship. Maybe that you have mentally abusive parents in the domestic environment, but it may also be that you have abusive children, mentally abusive children, mostly teenagers. Technically, all kids are mentally abusive, I think, to a degree. But jokes aside, since it's a rather serious topic, I spoke with let me get to the initial idea of running this episode. A few weeks ago, I got an email from one of our listeners who outlined this topic and said that one of her friends, or that she was suspecting that one of her friends was suffering from mental abuse in the relationship, because she had seen certain indicators. And I wrote back and said, look, I'm not an expert. I don't have any background in psychology, at least no piece of paper that states that I do. But I'll look into it. So I reached out to a friend and long-term listener from my side, who then said, I'm familiar with the topic. And there are a few indicators to look out for to see if someone is actually being mentally abused. Disclaimer, these rules are rather universal, or these indicators are rather universal. So they could apply to a variety of other things, but it's a combination of one or two or more that and the increase then determines whether or increases the chance that there is mental abuse at play. So be careful when applying them. As I said with the episode about depressions that we made last year, this is the same thing. Don't go running around and just because you see one presumed symptom or indicator, running to the cops or to family shelters or whatever and alarming someone. This is just basically for you to then talk to the person and say, look, are you suffering from mental abuse? Because a lot of times people will be in denial. So you're going to have to start twisting their arm to figure out what's going on. If they entrust to you, go ahead and take their hand and then initiate further steps with the help of a professional. I cannot state this enough. I'm not a professional. So the info I'm giving you is from a professional, but without a lot of background myself. So basically, I'm just regurgitating the opinion of a professional. So without further ado, let's get started. A person suffering from mental abuse will be constantly apologetic. They will basically take a rather submissive role in conversation and say, I'm sorry repeatedly for, even minor screw ups. Or even if they don't screw up at all, basically they're in a position where they feel so inferior that they actually feel sorry to be alive, to be a burden to other people around them in their environment. And, this can be achieved in a negative sense by, both in domestic and professional environments. And so that's one of the indicators to look out for. If somebody's, acting insanely submissive, if somebody's basically apologetic for the fact that they're alive, that's a strong indicator that something is not right there. The next one is breakdowns during even small arguments. Right. And, how you have an argument with someone and it usually carries on because everybody's got their position, and you then, in an ideal world, you kind of align your positions to a degree where you can reach a compromise, and then you're, good to go on. Right. These people will then, if you confront them with your opinion, start to withdraw and suffer some kind of a breakdown, right? It can either be that they want to just avoid the discussion in the first place and retreat. But a lot of times this will actually lead to a breakdown with, crying and decrease of self-esteem and so on and so forth. So that's something to look out for as well. Number 3 is a person suffering from mental abuse requires a lot of reassurance, right? Because what happens during the process of mental abuse is that the self-esteem gets eroded to a degree where the people just feel totally, that the victims feel totally inferior, right? That's what I mentioned in the first part. They become very submissive, doubtful about themselves, about their existence, really, right? Why am I alive? Because they constantly get hammered upon that they are not worth anything, and that their, whatever partner or superior or whatever is better and brighter and smarter. And, so they get put into a position, into a corner where this, where they can't get out of the professional or domestic relationship. They have to stay there in that situation. And on the other hand, you've got somebody yelling at you and making you feel even more inferior, right? And that's kind of like the situation. So they need a lot of reassurance and positive input to then grow back to their natural self. That's another very important thing, is to, actually help them, take them by the hand and give them that reassurance, give them that strength, and help them out of the situation. Because a lot of times they'll be stuck for whatever reason, mostly a dependency, right? So the next one is that they will be struggling to put their guard down, right? It's going to be very difficult for them to entrust an external entity with their situation. And think of Stockholm syndrome, where, in a hostage situation, the hostages really kind of relate to their hostage takers, criminals. What's the term that I'm looking for? I don't know. Anyhow, I think you get the point. And that's, to a degree, what happens in such relationships. When you're caught in such a relationship, you can't get out because you're dependent on the person, either psychologically or monetarily or whatever. This can also be the case for a professional environment, because you've got a very authoritative boss and, that kind of deal, right? So it's for them, because they are so attracted to their oppressor, that they have a very difficult time opening up to someone else. And number two, if they open up to someone else, what if their oppressor finds out, that they've been getting it all wrong, and transporting a message to the outside world that, there's that this person is evil while they only mean good, and those kind of arguments come into play. So once you have them to open up, it's very important to kind of keep the foot in the door, to establish rapport once and maintain it, for then to become, or to get into a situation where you can actually go with them, take their hand, seek professional help, and try and get them out of the situation, right? That's another very important thing to consider. Next is hypersensitivity to criticism. So they will essentially take in anything from their abuser, right? From their oppressor. Anything to, mow them down and chop the legs off their self-esteem, they will take in. And they won't take it in with a grain of salt. They won't think about it, right? They're at a stage where they will just take what their oppressor says as the absolute truth. And any criticism from the outside world about the relationship and that the oppressor could be wrong, particularly that, will lead to hypersensitivity, will lead to breakdowns, will lead to fierce counteractions, really, to protect their oppressor. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Hiding of feelings is another one that's very important. So all of the emotions, most of which are going to be negative, will be kept inside this abusive relationship. And so there's a lot of emotional distress going on. So, and a lot of emotional spillage which takes place. So feelings for other people and the outside world are going to be very difficult to establish for them, right? And that's why it's very difficult for them to for the victims of mental abuse to open up and have feelings towards other people, because their feelings towards their oppressor, ironically, be they negative or positive at that stage, will take up so much room in their emotional world that it's very difficult for them to open up. Plus, it's like their oppressor is going to have implanted the thought that the oppressor is the only person that is good in their life and everybody else is bad. So, there's another route to go down. But I think I got the point across. Then there's going to be this feeling of not enough in them. They're going to feel inferior. They're going to act very submissive, as I already said. They're going to be very small when they walk. You can notice it on the body language. You can notice the way they dress. There's going to be no extraordinary clothing on them. It's just going to be, they want to fit in, right? And that's a very interesting reaction as well. So, those were the elements that I discussed with my friend that he shared with me. And I hope that for some of you, it's going to be helpful advice to use, within your surroundings, because especially of the lockdown / quarantine situation, a lot of people will be stuck on, not too many square meters together with an abusive partner. And that's a very difficult situation to be in, because normally they'd have an opportunity to flee at least part of the time, to attend to their job or visit family or whatever. And all of these opportunities to get a rest, to get out of the situation, at least temporarily, is gone. So they're pretty fucked. So it's very important for you to look out for signs and symptoms. Again, don't go to the police immediately. Talk to them. Look for a psychologist to get them out of situations. There are many organizations, not-for-profits that will help as well. And in that sense, share this episode far and wide, please, because this is not going to be a single phenomenon. This is going to be widespread, and domestic abuse is on the rise as well because of the aforementioned arguments. And so again, share this episode far and wide, please, so that everyone will be aware. If you haven't, please subscribe to the show. If you have any questions, criticism, or whatever, please email The Very Best Podcast in the World. And if you want to subscribe and you have no idea how, look for us on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have difficulty, there are going to be links to every one platform on www.theverybestpodcastintheworld.com. Now, have a successful day despite the negativity of this post to a degree, or to this episode. And if you've already had a successful day, despite have a good night. And we'll be in touch again tomorrow. Then that's when we will hear each other again for Exercise Friday. And I'm still deciding between 2 episodes. So, stay tuned and tune in tomorrow when we're going to do non-physical exercise. All right. Stay tuned. Peace out, folks. See you tomorrow.